Hi everyone, it's Annie, and today I'm going to give you my TBR for Book Riot's Read Harder challenge for 2021. This is my first year doing this challenge as well as the Reading Women's Challenge, which I just posted. And also, as in that video, in this video, I'll be giving you both my TBR and sometimes some extra recommendations for the prompts. So let's get started. The first prompt is to read a book that I've been intimidated to read. This one's hard because there are a lot of books like that. I know I mentioned Beartown in my December TBR, which I didn't end up reading. There's also The Poppy War, which I'm kind of intimidated by, although I definitely really want to read that. And there's just a lot of others on my TBR, so I will pick whatever works, whatever I feel like in the moment. Prompt number 2 is to read a nonfiction book about anti-racism. So I'm going to pick the book How to Be an Anti-Racist. Yeah, I still have not read this. I know it's very important to read, so I'm glad this prompt came up and I'll finally get around to reading it. Prompt number 3 I've already completed. It's to read a non-European novel in translation. And I have already read Fever Dream by Samantha Schweblin, and I absolutely loved it. Again, you'll hear about it in my January wrap-up, but it is just so amazing, so suspenseful, very, very suspenseful, and just so weird. Really, really masterfully done, and it takes place in Argentina, so it fits the prompt. Prompt number 4 is to read an LGBTQ+ history book. I'm very happy about this prompt. I have 2 books that I'm thinking about reading. One is David Bowie Made Me Gay, 100+ years of LGBT music. And this has been on my TBR for a while. I think I added it because I took a class about the history of music in university, just for an elective, and the professor recommended it. And it just sounds like something I'd really, really be interested in. And the next one is Transgender History. It sounds important to read. It has also been on my TBR for a good long while. So again, depending on my mood, we'll see which one I pick up. Prompt number 5, I've already completed. It's to read a genre novel by an Indigenous, First Nations, or Native American author. And I read The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. It's a horror novel. It was really good. Highly recommend. And yeah, I'm very glad I read this. The next prompt is to read a fanfic. I was pretty surprised about this prompt. I mean, I guess it is the Read Harder challenge, so this is a challenge. I am going to choose The Redemption of Time by Bao Shu. I think I pronounced that right. It was originally a fanfic of the Three Body Problem trilogy, and it's been published and also translated by Ken Liu, I believe, the original translator of the Three Body Problem trilogy. And I loved that trilogy, so even though this has quite low ratings compared to the actual original trilogy by the original author, I still want to give it a try. Number 7 is to read a fat positive romance. This is quite difficult for me because I really don't like reading romance. So to be honest, I'm not even sure if I'm going to complete this prompt, but I found a lesbian, very, very short novella about knitting. It's called Knit One Girl Two, and I think that's pretty perfect for me. I like knitting, I like short books, and it just seems really cute. So if I do complete this prompt, this is probably the one that I'll read for it. Prompt number 8 is to read a romance book by a trans or non-binary author. I have 2 that immediately came to mind for this one. The first one is Cemetery Boys, which everyone loved, and I know I have to read it. It's definitely a high priority book for 2021. And the other one is One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston. Either one will work. I know I said I didn't like romance, but these are 2 that have gotten so much buzz about them. And yeah, we'll see which one I pick. The next prompt is to read a middle grade mystery. This is also a challenge for me because I don't read a lot of middle grade, but I had one on my TBR called Scritch Scratch, and originally I think it came out in the fall of 2020, so it's pretty new. I had wanted to read it for like Halloween time, but the hold in my library didn't come in on time, and then I kind of lost interest. The only thing is it's shelved mostly as horror. Sometimes it is shelved as mystery on Goodreads, so if anyone has read this book and can tell me if it really counts for mystery and if it really fits this prompt, please let me know. I'd be very grateful. Prompt number 10 is to read a sci-fi fantasy anthology edited by a person of color, and I chose Invisible Planets: Contemporary Chinese Science Fiction in Translation by Ken Liu. So yeah, it's pretty self-explanatory. He's the translator for the Three Body Problem trilogy. I love that. I trust his opinions about sci-fi, and I also want to read more sci-fi translated from Chinese, so it's perfect. Prompt number 11, I am actually in the middle of completing while filming this. I'm reading The Cooking Gene by Michael Twitty right now, and that fulfills the prompt, read a food memoir by a person of color. And it's really, really good so far. He is just so knowledgeable about food, and he also narrates the audiobook, so it's really enjoyable to listen to. And yeah, I'm glad I picked this book for this prompt. The next prompt is to read a book of investigative nonfiction by an author of color. This is a very exciting prompt. It sounds super interesting. The first one that immediately came to mind because it was on my TBR already is by Suki Kim, and it is called Without You, There Is No Us, My Time with North Korea's Elite. I am really, really interested in this. I think you guys might have realized that I really like reading about North Korea, so this is probably going to be my pick for this one. But if for whatever reason it's not, I also found Adnan's story, which sounds very, very interesting. It's kind of a true crime investigative nonfiction, and that sounds really interesting. I definitely want to get to this book eventually, but for this prompt I'll probably go with the one about North Korea. The next prompt is to read a book with a cover I don't like. I am pretty picky about covers, so this can apply to a lot of books. On Book Riot's recommendations, they actually had Kindred by Octavia E. Butler, and yeah, I have to say that I don't really like this cover of it. I don't know, I don't like the font that they used, and personally I don't like, not as a rule, but most books where they use actual photographs instead of illustrations on the cover I don't like, but it really depends. I don't know, it's just not visually appealing to me, but there are many other books that also fall into that category. So I just picked this one because I had been planning on reading it, so we'll see. The next prompt is to read a realistic YA book that is not set in the North Americas. So, there are 3. The first one is Darius the Great is Not Okay, and it's set, I believe, mostly in Iran, although some of it is in North America, but it was on Book Riot's official recommendation list, so it counts, and it's about an Iranian boy who goes to Iran and things happen. I know it's queer, I don't really know much else about it, except I love this cover, but I don't really mind if I don't know that much about it because it sounds really great. The next one is The Silence of Bones, and it's set in Korea, historical Korea, which is my thing. I love books set in historical Korea, so I definitely want to get to this book, if not for this prompt, absolutely sometime this year. And I know Junher is also having a book coming out this year. I believe it's called The Forest of Stolen Girls, so I'm really interested in that as well. And the third book that I might choose for this prompt is called The Weight of Our Sky, and the description says, a music-loving teen with OCD does everything she can to find her way back to her mother during the historic race riots in 1969 Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Wow. Just absolutely yes. Like, I want to read this immediately. The next prompt is to read a memoir by a Latinx author, and I will choose In the Dream House for this one. It won the Reading Women's Award for nonfiction for this year. It sounds amazing and heartbreaking at the same time, and I really want to read it. I am a little intimidated by it because of the subject matter. It's about the author's experience with an abusive relationship, but I think it's important to read, and I do want to get to it this year. The next prompt is to read a book that is own voices about disability, and I chose The Sound of a Wild Snail Eating. So in this book, the author is bedridden by a mysterious illness. It's not clarified in the synopsis, but it will probably be clarified when I actually read the book. And she finds solace watching a wild snail go about its life. And it just sounds really beautiful. I love nature writing, I love memoirs, so I'm gonna read this. The next prompt is to read an Own Voices YA book with a Black main character that isn't about Black pain. I immediately chose You Should See Me in a Crown because everyone has read it pretty much. It's on a lot of people's best of 2020 lists. I am so looking forward to reading this. It just sounds so cute and just a really fun, lighthearted read amidst all of the very serious topics that these books cover. I think this will be a really fun one to read. The next prompt is to read a book by or about a non-Western world leader. So I picked The Art of Happiness by the Dalai Lama. This has been on my TBR forever. I really know nothing about the Dalai Lama, and he's definitely a world leader, and I'd really like to read his thoughts. The next prompt is to read a historical fiction with a POC or LGBT+ protagonist. Perfect. I love historical fiction. This prompt is like made for me, so I have a lot of books to talk about. The first one is a new release. It's coming out in January. It is Last Night at the Telegraph Club by Melinda Lowe. It's historical fiction. It's set in the 1950s in San Francisco's Chinatown, and one of the protagonists is Asian, and both of them are lesbians, I'm pretty sure. So it definitely fits the prompt twofold, and I am so excited to read this book. The next one is The Island of the Sea Women by Lisa C. I've never actually read anything by Lisa C. before, although I know she's really well known for her historical fiction. I recently read The Mermaid from Jeju by Sumi Han about a haenyeo, a woman diver in Korea, and this book is all about these women divers. So I really want to learn more about them, and I am very excited to read this as well. And the next book that could fit this prompt is The Night Tiger. To be honest, I don't know much about this. I know it's historical fiction and it's set in Asia, I believe Malaysia, but don't quote me on that. I don't remember. And it's like magical realism. I am interested in this. Now that I'm talking about them, not as much as the other two, but it's still on my TBR. Prompt number 20 is to read a book of nature poems, and I chose The Lost Words by Robert Macfarlane. I believe the synopsis describes it as children are growing up now without really being, not exposed is the wrong word, but you know, they have all this technology at their fingertips, and when I was growing up, I did have that technology, but I didn't have like iPads and smartphones and stuff as a kid. You know, I still went out and played in nature, and I feel like a lot of kids, and I guess Robert Macfarlane feels the same way, that it's important to still have a connection with nature as a child, and I think it's going to be a really nice read. Alright, the next prompt is to read a children's book that centers on a disabled character, but not on their disability. I have a book that is perfect for this prompt already on my TBR. It's called Song for a Whale, about a deaf girl who makes friends with a whale. My sister was obsessed with whales growing up, so I was exposed to a lot of whale movies and whale books. So I'm always interested in whales, and it just sounds like a really nice story. Number 22, read a book set in the Midwestern United States. I chose In Cold Blood by Truman Capote. Yeah, I need to read this. I love true crime, love nonfiction. This is a classic. It's been on my TBR forever. I think I tried to read it, but at the time I just wasn't in the mood to get into it. But I know that sometime this year I will be wanting to read this. Number 23, read a book that demystifies a common mental illness. I chose 2 books. Both of them happen to deal with schizophrenia, which is interesting. The first one is a nonfiction book called Hidden Valley Road, and it's about a family who deals with schizophrenia. That's really all I know about it. I know it was very, very popular this year, although I haven't really seen anybody on Booktube, at least anyone that I watch, talk about it. But it has really high ratings, and I am definitely interested in reading it. The other one is Challenger Deep. It's a YA story about a boy with schizophrenia. It's been on my TBR for years. And it's very popular, and I was just reminded of it by Elena the Great, so I think it fits this prompt nicely. And the last prompt, number 24, is to read a book where the beloved pet does not die. I have 2 for this one. The first one is Following Atticus. It's about a dog, and the next one is A Street Cat Named Bob. I'm pretty sure neither of these pets die. I know the street cat one, Bob, doesn't die because there's a sequel to it, and I don't think Atticus will die, although obviously I haven't read it, so please let me know if Atticus dies, if it actually fits this prompt, if you've read it before. Alright guys, that's the end of this video. I really hope you enjoyed, and please comment down below with your recommendations for any books that could fit the prompts of this challenge. And let me know if you're participating in the Book Riot Challenge this year as well. It'd be really fun to talk about it. So if you liked this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel for more bookish videos. Bye!